Sequel of the Captive's Diary, episode 59, season 4, written by Precious Chinwe Obialor-Ukazim. Alright, let's continue from where we stopped yesterday. So, when Barrister Precious and her husband arrived at the hospital at the early hours of the morning, they were so shocked to see David. What? David, how did you get here? David asked with her mouth widely open as she stared at David, who wore a broad smile. Good morning, Mrs. Precious, he greeted. Good morning, sir, he greeted Pastor Peter also, grinning on seeing the shock on their faces. How did you do it? Pastor Peter asked, laughing. I came by night. He replied, then beaming. Wow, exclaimed Precious, feeling so very impressed. So how did you get to know that your sunshine was hospitalized? She asked, then followed David's eye when he looked at Junior. Oh, Junior, you did? She said, laughing as she caught their eyes, and everybody laughed, including Uma, who's been grinning from ear to ear since they arrived, and were also surprised to see Honeybug. This thing called love, said Peter, extending his hand to David for a handshake, as a way of welcoming and commending him for inconveniencing himself and traveling all night to be with his girl. That was so sweet of you, David. Precious commended him before moving to the bed to see Oma. How is my darling baby doing this morning? She asked, pulling her up into an embrace. Good morning, Mrs. Precious, greeted Uma. I feel a lot better now, she told her. Uncle, good morning, she greeted Pastor Peter, who teased her thoughts. Of course, you would feel better, because your love charm is here now. You should have told us you are missing him instead of fainting, baby, he told Uma, and they all laughed over the joke. Love is a powerful thing, you know. This reminds me of when I was courting my wife back home in Nigeria. I was living in their father's house, that's Unamdi's house, and my wife, who was then my fiancée, had an armed men's attack in her apartment. She called my phone that night, and I was so scared that something bad might happen to her. It was 12 a.m. Everyone was sleeping already, but I didn't care. I just wanted to go to her place and save my woman. Peter told them a brief story about himself and Precious, but they weren't satisfied with how the story ended here. So, did you later go there? Junior asked curiously, and David nodded in concurrence with the question because he was also interested in hearing how heroic he had acted in saving his woman, while Uma and Precious were just listening and grinning at their conversation. Yeah, of course, we did, replied Peter. I went up to call your father that night because it was late and I couldn't have gone out on my own without his permission. So he made some calls and some security operatives were released to accompany us to her place. But by the time we got there, she was badly injured. They shot her and I did thought she was dead. I had a panic attack and almost fainted because I thought I had lost her. This part got both himself and Precious very emotional because it's a testimony of one who died, Precious, but was brought back to life. Yeah. She actually died, but God brought her back to life. He told them, and they were all in awe of God. Uma turned and looked at Precious again. Tears had clouded her eyes as she probably reflected on what happened that night. And she gave Uma a tight hug. You know, I knew I loved her, but I never knew how much I loved her until that day. I was not just scared of losing her to death. I felt life leaving me for her sake, and at that point, I was willing to risk anything to see her safe and alive, even if it meant losing my own life. Peter told Junior and David, then continued facing David. So coming here this morning and finding you by her bedside and hearing that you traveled all night to be by her side, I feel so proud of you. It shows how much she means to you, and I am proud of you too. Peter commended David openly, and he nodded in response gratefully. So you mean when I am in love finally with someone, when I'm finally in love with someone, I would have to do things like this to prove my love? Junior asked, and everybody started laughing. No, I'm very serious right now. What if I'm a fearful person and so afraid of taking such risk, but I truly love her? He asked Pastor Peter, looking all serious. Junior, don't come with your own again. What are we going to use to answer this guy? But true, do we have to take certain risks to prove our love for people so dear to our hearts. Like, I would like to hear you guys' opinion. Like, do we really have to take risk, this certain risk, to prove our love for people to so dear to our hearts? Just imagine. Well, no problem. I'm happy David did that because that was very risky, but a lot of love to out of love already he did it. And I guess you guys can remember when Precious was shot by those armed men. What is Peter even saying? He fainted. He said he nearly fainted. He fainted. It took water to revive him. If you guys can remember vividly what happened to him. They took God. He took him now water. They used water to revive him. And they were now asking him why did he faint. He was saying it's because he doesn't like the sight of blood. Anyway, at least we thank God it's all a testimony today, not that we are mourning Precious. Well, thank you very much for listening and for watching. God bless you. So see you tomorrow and have a beautiful and great day. Bye bye.